DA, good morning to you. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Tom Brady and where he goes feels like the first domino when it comes to the potential offseason of quarterback carousel. When you look at his numbers and his stats, do you worry that in his season at age number 43 that he will continue to be less effective?
I think I don't worry about Tom Brady because I still believe he's good enough to win championships. I still believe he's good enough to dice up any defense that you can throw at him because his mental Rolodex is so vast. However, what the numbers showed last year, now some of this could be based on some of the players that were around him, the receivers, but the numbers had shown that he wasn't as good against pressure defenses. Now, this is something where he really has set himself apart from other quarterbacks throughout the tenure of his entire career. But last year, those numbers declined. Now, some of that has to be credited to receivers who aren't getting open fast enough, who aren't sight adjusting and reading the same blitz pressures that he's reading. That's why you saw the frustration there. So he's going to need to be in an offense, whether he goes back to the Patriots or not, where he's surrounded by talent who can play up to his level. Because he could still be the same guy, but if not surrounded by that talent, I think some of the struggles will continue.
One of the after effects of Drew Brees returning is what happens to Teddy Bridgewater. If we assume that Bridgewater moves on from the Saints, do you think that Bridgewater, what he showed last year when Brees was out, would be enough of a sample size for a team to go out and say, you know what, he can be our franchise quarterback, we'll give him the money that he's looking for?
I think the answer is yes. Now, but it also has to include, I think, and this can be said with every single quarterback that's on that free agent list. Each quarterback comes with a unique skill set with things that they do well and maybe things that they don't do quite so well. And what we're finding is that quarterbacks need a system to play in and that they tend to function better when the system sort of is tailored to what they do best. So, in other words, if you're going to get Teddy Bridgewater and think you're going to run, RPOs and where he's got to move around a lot and be more athletic, well, that's not going to be a good system for him. What you saw last year was the Saints had the 31st ranked average depth of target, in terms of ball going down the field, 31st of any offense in the NFL. Now, those numbers are very similar with Drew Brees. No one's asking, can he still go deep? This offense was a ball-controlled offense, whether it had Teddy or Drew Brees in it. And I think if you're going to bring in Teddy, I think you got to look to do some similar things that Sean Payton did with Teddy when he went 5-0 in 2019 and look to play the same kind of offense.
Solomon Wilcots joins us this morning here on the show from Pro Football Focus. A lot of people saying that even though the Buccaneers might need a quarterback if they move on from Jameis Winston, a guy like Bridgewater doesn't make any sense because he can't throw the deep ball. Maybe a guy like Tom Brady at his age doesn't make sense because Bruce Arians wants to throw the deep ball as well. Do you abide by that, or do you think that's overblown?
No, I think both guys can throw the deep ball. I think they have thrived in systems recently anyway where the ball's coming out quick, where the ball is going to tight end over the middle, back coming out, check down. And you'd be the same way if you had a Mike Thomas that's more of a possession receiver more than a stretch down the field receiver. You'd be the same way if you had an Alvin Kamara coming out of the backfield or James White, right, coming out of the backfield, or Julian Edelman. So those systems were designed that way because of the players that were surrounding the quarterback. So it remains to be seen if these guys can be more consistent stretching the field, because it's not something that they've been asked to do recently. And so I think it's a good question, but I would stop short of saying they can't do it. I would say we just have not seen that from them as of late.
We had Peter King on the show yesterday. He thought that Andy Dalton would actually make a good Patriot. He thought there was a lot of the qualities of him as a quarterback and from a personality that would make him fit in well with the quote-unquote Patriot way in Belichick. Could you see that fit?
I can tell you right now, I've been an Andy Dalton fan for a long time, and I just think he's been, sort of passed unfairly from a national perspective. And I go back to when he came into the league in 2011. There was a lockout, DA. He came from TCU, a guy that had won over 40 games at a program that wasn't used to winning, but they won when he was there. And he won over 10 games a year every year and was a starter from his freshman year to his final year, and came here into Cincinnati with very little time to understand and grasp the playbook. He came in and in short order, he learned the playbook. Jay Gruden was the offensive coordinator then. All he did from his rookie season through his fifth year is led the Bengals to the postseason each of his first 5 years as a player in the NFL, from his rookie season through his fifth season. And for whatever reason, people just did not, grab hold of what he was able to accomplish so early in his career. And, I think Bill Belichick recognized the football IQ, ball control, quick release, understanding defenses, keeping the ball out of harm's way, and allowing things to work well around him. And I think that's what he's looking for. I think another quarterback that would fit well with the Patriots is Ryan Tannehill. Tannehill can throw the deep ball. He's good coming off of play action fake. And he is a guy that will function within the system and not necessarily look for gaudy numbers or look for it to be all about him. Because I think that's what Belichick really values in a quarterback, is a guy that is going to run the offense the way that we've worked on it, the way that we've studied it, and allow the components around you to work well for the offense.
Solomon Wilcots, Pro Football Focus, joins us this morning on the show. Last time that we spoke, I asked you about Joe Burrow, and you're a former Bengal. You know Cincinnati well, and ProFootballTalk.com had picked up part of your quote, and they kind of made it seem like you were siding with Carson Palmer, that it was buyer beware, that Joe Burrow shouldn't want to go play for the Bengals. I think that was taken out of context because you had other thoughts about Joe Burrow and that whole conversation, and you kind of talked about that on Twitter as well. Where do you want to clarify your thoughts on Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals' potential draft of him?
Yeah, and I could have been more clear because, you asked me several questions, and I was very supportive in Carson from this perspective. And I said that I saw the life sucked out of him, but I saw that because of things that happened off the field, not because of things that happened with the football team. I thought the team was very supportive of Carson Palmer. There's no doubt the Cincinnati Bengals want to win a Super Bowl. Okay, you go back to the last decade, the Bengals, they went to the postseason 5 of the last 10 years. We can find other teams that have been absent from the postseason much more than the Bengals have in recent history. But so I was supportive of Carson because when fans go to his home and violate his property and make his wife and children feel unsafe, you and I know that's crossing the line. That's going above, crossing that line into becoming very creepy. And that affected him. And I think that was a tipping point for him. And I want to see fans be more supportive. I wanted to see them supportive of Carson Palmer. I wanted to see them support Andy Dalton better, where they cheered and criticized him and booed him at a charity softball game. Here's a guy giving up his own free time to support a community function to raise funds for the community, and the community boos him because they don't know how to separate how they feel about him as a quarterback from what he's doing in his private time to raise money to help charitable causes. So I want to see the community and the fans be more supportive, and I want to see them support Joe Burrow more than they did the last two quarterbacks who were here. Joe Burrow has never said he doesn't want to be a Bengal. I think he does, and I know the team wants him. I think the team would love to have him. I can't speak for the Bengals in that sense, but he put forth the best college football season we've seen from a college quarterback in recent history. So I think the two would be a great marriage, but I want to see the fans be more supportive of Joe Burrow than they were of Carson Palmer and than they were of Andy Dalton.
That's interesting. I don't think a lot of people around the country think of Cincinnati as a really difficult place to play, not on the par with some of the other big cities like a Philadelphia, like a Boston. Is there something unique about Cincinnati that people don't really realize about the difficulty of trying to play quarterback there?
No, I don't know what happened there. I don't know what has caused the fans to maybe not fully embrace Carson Palmer or not fully embrace Andy Dalton. I just spoke to you about how quickly Andy Dalton, his career was a tremendous success, particularly in the beginning. In those first 5 seasons, he had A.J. Green. They came in the same draft class. The Bengals have drafted very well during those years of 2011, 2012. I thought in 2015 they had one of the best rosters in the National Football League. That was the season where Dalton gets hurt, and they have to play with a backup quarterback, and they lose to the Steelers in the playoffs. And from then on, it's kind of been a little bit difficult where they've had some hit and misses on the offensive line. But I thought Carson Palmer was as talented. This is with all due respect to Kenny Anderson and my former quarterback with the Bengals and Boomer Esiason. Both were league MVPs, by the way. But Carson Palmer was as talented as any quarterback the Bengals have ever had. And Andy Dalton statistically has performed better than any Cincinnati Bengal quarterback that has ever played. In terms of wins, in terms of passing yards, you look at the record books, he's taken up to 5 straight postseasons. No quarterback had ever done that. So, yeah, I think they could have been treated better, and I just think it needs to be called out much in the same way that when Sam Weiss says, hey, you live in Cincinnati. What he was saying is we're better than that, okay? So maybe they needed a reminder then when he said it, because I was playing in a game that day when he did that. And that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm really calling for Bengals fans to be more supportive. If Joe Burrow is going to come here and play, let's do a better job of supporting him than we did with Carson Palmer and Andy Dalton.
You live in Cincinnati. You don't live in Cleveland. Ah! One of the great moments in NFL history. Check out Pro Football Focus, PFF, for the latest on analytics. If you're an armchair GM, if you got your fantasy draft that you want to prepare for months in advance, looking at the draft, it's all right there. Pro Football Focus. Solomon Wilcots from PFF joining us here on the show. It's always fun to catch up, my man. Thanks so much for doing it for us today.
Great work, DA. Take care. All the best to you.
You too.